So let's talk convertible tops for first generation F-body cars, Camaro or Firebird or Camaro. Either way, they're the same. There's two top frames, manual or power, but again, the actual top material and how it is installed is the same between the both of them. That's what we're going to get in here today, Project Mockingbird. As you can see, it looks like a complete car because it actually almost is. I've got everything done minus the top. And there's a few times where being topless is okay, but this is not one of them. So we're going to work on taking care of that problem. I'm going to show you how to get the top on to the best of my ability, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is only top number 2 I've ever done in my entire life. First one came out, I think, satisfactory. I won't give it an A+, because there were some things that I learned, and I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to show you what I know on this. And again, the right way, the wrong way, and the VVG way. There's probably better ways or different ways to do this. So I'm just going to show you my experience, what I know, and you can adapt it to your car or do it exactly like I did. If it comes out great, and I'll say, hey, we did a good job. But nonetheless, I'm going to keep the camera rolling, show you the ups, the downs, the ins, and the outs, and see about making this car where it is no longer topless. First off, let's kind of start with what we got here for tools. You're going to need a pneumatic stapler. I'm going to tell you right now, it's just the way to go. You can get one of those manual ones, but your hands look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when you're done. You would clink, 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 clink. And a lot of times it's kind of hard to get your hand in there. So do yourself a favor. Go to Harbor Freight, buy you one of these. It works pretty decent. And the other thing, it even says in the instructions of the supplier of the convertible tops, stainless steel staples is the way to go. I went with 3/8 depth, works pretty good. It seems to work all nice on all the tack strips. You need some sharp scissors, razor blade, screwdriver, tape measure. These are the lag bolts to hold the tack strip to the top well on the back. You're going to need a little pick or a point to dig out some of the screw holes to get the screws through where some of the parts actually attach. You're going to need some spray adhesive. I normally use the 77, but I found some 90, and it seems to work pretty good, and I have about 3/4 of a can, should be more than enough. Now, those are kind of the tools you're going to need to get this thing rolling. Now, what I've done on the top, previous video, is we adjusted this top frame. It works like a champ, up and down with the button being a power top. So make sure your top is all adjusted first. If you don't know about that, check out our previous video. Now, the other thing I've done is I marked the center line. I marked it here on the top and then clear down the windshield. That seems excessive, but it's not. When you go to pull that top over, I'll show you here, the top material has a little notch cut in it. Well, that's great. Well, the notch and the material hangs clear over the windshield somewhere around in this area here. You lose center line. Yes, it's marked here, but you can't keep flipping it up to measure it. So I like doing this when I fold the top over. I can make sure my center line is good. And I also verify my center line to my car. That's what these little arrows here are, because this tape obviously 3/4 inch wide. Which side is it? Well, I make it almost foolproof, so I know which side is my center line side. So that's why I did the front. Did a similar thing here in the back. This rear bow here. This will actually get stapled clear across the hole through the final vinyl top. So you want to make sure it's in the right location. That's where I goobered up on my first one. I didn't get it quite nailed. So here's the center line of that rear bow. Now you might be seeing these things here scratch your head. I'll explain those here in just a couple moments. But the other things in prep wise, make sure your trim is good. Put that on first. There really is no great way to get to the screws that retain us. Yes, there's clips and it locks into place. There's also screws. And with the top end, it's virtually impossible. There's a little plastic gutter system that catches any water that might get past the top, and of course brilliantly drains here in the quarter panels, which whatever, that's just how they did it, but that keeps the water out of the trunk is the idea. So make sure that's in good working condition. This is the original, that's why it looks so yellowed, but it's not cracked or broken or damaged, so I felt it was okay to reuse it. So those things need to be installed first. Now, what I'm doing here, I actually surprisingly, I read the directions. Holy crap, I read the directions. There is a measurement from the rear bow to here. Now, the Body by Fisher's manual says, record your measurements and try to keep it close to the spec. Well, Key Auto Tops, that's the brand that I got, shows the center line of this rear bow to the chrome trim. It even says it, chrome trim to center line, 22.5 inches. So this rear bow, if it wasn't taped together with my strut rods there, it's all over the place. So you need to have that located first, because you got to put the pads on first, then staple it, back glass in, staple it, then you put the top on, then staple it. So this needs to be positioned properly. So what they give you is, so like I said, I'll say it again, I won't say all tops, all brands, all manufacturers are 22.5 inch, but Key Auto, put it in writing. I must have missed it the first time around, or maybe they didn't say it, but center line of here to here, 22.5 inches. I guess while I'm back here, this is a 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch square piece of wood. I made a little bit of a radius here, so it's tucked up tight against this bow here in the front. and the back I just wedge it against there. Then I take a compression band, take masking tape, loop around it one time, and keep it pulled up tight. And the length of this might vary depending on your top frame condition, etc., to get your 22.5 inches from here to here. So I won't give you that number. You got to figure it out for yourself. But the tape works really nice, because even once you get this top on and stapled, this tape is that really crappy Menards tape. It doesn't stick for nothing. That's the word I'm going to go with. So you can just peel that loose. It'll feed right out. Even if you put a staple to it, it'll pull out of there. So that's what I have here. These are just 2 pieces of wood cut to length. And this is kind of like a compression strap holding it together. Now, in preparation for the top, same thing. I put a piece of tape with arrows pointing at the center line. You see that white line there on the top? That actually goes right on top of that rear bow once installed. So it actually gets it covered up pretty good. Now in the front, they do mark the center line of this top. It's right here, this little tiny cut. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's how they mark the center line. Now when this drapes over the front of the car, it's going to tag my windshield, and I can line that up with my piece of tape. That way then I have the top center, so you can never have too many reference marks in this situation, I feel. And I had this thing sitting out in the sun. This thing was in the box for 1.5 years. I found the paperwork when they packaged this thing. I'm hoping more of these wrinkles work out. It's actually about almost 75 degrees here in India. I've been waiting for a hot, sunny day. Well, today's the day, so we're just going to try to knock this thing out. But I don't want this thing sit here and keep baking in the sun as we continue to prep this here. But for the next thing is, you have to make sure these tack strips are in good shape. I had to replace these ones. They were decayed and gone. I put screws and glued it down to help hold it into place. And this is for, there's a padding that goes underneath here, runs clear across the whole mechanism, back here to this bow here. And that kind of covers things up from the top rides on. And these screws actually attach that pad. So that little pick is for. I've also got an attaching screw, I think it's right here. That's for one of the top cables. And the other screw is right here. I'll show you how that goes here in just a minute, just the same. So you have a tack strip here. There's a tack strip underneath the leading edge of the top. This is not a tack strip. This actually unscrews this strip here. And there's 4 screws that attach it. You got to feed this through the top. And then I said this one is screwed to it. That's it. And the back here is a tack strip. These ones you can use a longer staple, like a 1/2 inch staple, or even 3/4 inch staple. There's a lot of material, a lot of real estate in case you want to go with a longer staple. And then you have a tack strip that bolts inside here. There's these big lag bolt holes through the whole thing. About every 8 inches, you'll see a lag bolt. And that's what holds the tack strip to that. And that's what these bolts here are for. I put conveniently in a bag. Now the trick becomes, we do have to put the pads on probably. Step 1 is put the pads on each side, get those located. Not too complicated. Let's just go ahead and knock out a quick synopsis. So we're going to talk about the pads. Put those on first. Next thing is the convertible top well in the back. Once the top well is positioned, then you put the rear window in, which is a separate section. Tie that in, staple it in. And then last but not least, that's when you install the top. That's the quick overview. Well, you just heard what I just said. There's 3 things that get stapled to this rear tack strip. And unfortunately, step number 1 is the top well. Then you can't see nothing. So then you have to unbolt the tack strip, hopefully position things in the right place, staple back in, bolt back up, and adjust your tension on the rear window and the top. So this is the part that I just can't say I'm 100% master to figure it out. It's a little bit of fly by the seat of your pants. Use some masking tape, maybe the marker, and kind of guess. And maybe a few staples lightly put in place, and then test fit it and put it back on. That's the thing that I don't have an exact measurement where you staple that tack strip to on this. I don't. My goal is to get it pulled tight, no wrinkles, and the top operates nice and smooth. So anyway, that's the quick overview. So let's just go ahead and get into this. Let's get these pads laid out, show you how they go on there. All right, well, let's get started. This here padding, well, like I said, goes from here clear back to that rear bow. Now, there's 2 pieces. There's a foam that goes inside of it, and then the outer casing or wrapping, whatever you want to call it here, is kind of a trifold. So we actually want to get this laid into place without the foam in there, get a position, and then secure it down, and then you put the foam in. Now, my thoughts are, it is narrower here in the front, wider in the back. As it goes back, it needs to get wider. Now, it's not as wide as the original, because it gives you screws from here, here, and here. This never reaches the inner screw, so I'm assuming this isn't the same width as factory. So just an FYI for you. Now the other question becomes, where the heck do you put it at, right? Well, exactly. That's the answer. I try to line it up. There's this taper edge or the angled edge here of the top frame. I want my front corner to almost touch the corner of the front of the header panel up here, the front bow, and then just gonna drape over just on the side where it just comes over it here in the middle. Because this is radius, this fabric is not, so it's not going to follow it perfectly, but I figure you get it lined up here, you get it here, and it just sticks over down past that corner here in the middle just a little bit, and then pull it back here. And Now what we'll do then, once I get the position where I like it, I'll put a couple of staples here in the back first, pull it tight, and put a couple of staples here in the front. Now I got the back secure. I pull this tight, make sure I like how it looks. I'll move the edge just a little bit, and then this is the front corner. It's just coming up to the edge here. I'm gonna call that about where I want it. Now you gotta open this up. Show you what that looks like. I'll show you up close what I've done. Like I said, I got a straight line. I got where it just about touches that leading edge of the front bow. It's just a little high, but that's okay because I want the top to cover that. When it gets back here, it's kind of a straight line all the way back, and where it intersects the top frame is where these two sections come together. Same thing, I want it just here, just above that. It'll drape down just past that ever so slightly, but we're not talking much. It's just about right there. I want to cover up all the mechanisms so I don't damage the top. Now that I like the positioning, I'll go through here now, add all the staples, just a bunch of them, about every ½ inch apart or so. There's 3 screws that go into this bow. Same thing, staples go into this middle one, and I got a few more staples put in the front. Once it's stapled in place, we'll put the foam inside, use our contact adhesive or spray adhesive, put that in, and you glue this thing shut. It holds the padding inside. All right, now I've got a staple in the front. I got it stapled in the front, stapled here on the second bow, and then you got the screws in this section here. You can only get 3 of them. Same thing, you just take a little pick, you'll find little indentations. Just poke that vinyl, put the screw through, and staple clear across the back. Now, we'll go ahead and ready to put that foam into place, but that's a look at it. You gotta try to also keep this tension from end to end as you're doing that. So it's like doing one end, pull it tight, and then hopefully keep everything in working order. And my bow here, still tight, my piece of wood, so I know my rear measurement is still 22.5, looking pretty good. Then I just take a razor blade and trim off the excess, about 1 inch hanging off the back, about 6 to 7 hanging here off the front. So all cleaned up. Now I'll go ahead and install the foam. Now, of course, I picked the windiest day so far this fall to do this, but beggars can't be choosers. It's sunny and it's warm. I think I can get this thing knocked out today. So that's what we're going to try to do. Now, you see this is a tripod. That foam just kind of sits down right inside. Now, you could glue the layers down. Probably wouldn't hurt a thing. I'm going to do a little test fit here. Make sure it's all going to line up like I hope it should. You should have about a ½ inch, 3/4 inch or so of overlap if you get it right. You can see how that's going to work. I think that's going to work. Now I'll go ahead and glue it, put it into place. Then we just trim off the ends again to make it line up, and it should be in pretty good sorts. Next thing we're going to mess with is the top well and the tack strip that goes inside the top well. Now this one here actually has holes punched in it, which actually correspond to the holes there and my tack strip. And that one with the little notch in it, that's the center one right there. So that's not too complicated. I don't remember the one that I did 6 years ago had those holes in it like that. So this is going to make this a little bit easier, I hope. What we have to do, though, we got this laid out. The arch comes up away from the floor. I'm going to wrap this around here and go ahead and tack it into place. I'm going to use all my clamps, though, but I'm going to show you what has to happen. This is the top side. This is what's going to be seen through the back window. The shiny side is the trunk side once it's all assembled. Now, this has to come over the top. I'm going to fold over, then line up our bolt hole, and I'm going to clamp it. Then I'm going to come through here once everything's clamped and staple it all together. Top is all stapled into place. Now again, so these holes are nice and pre-punched, but they're merely a suggestion because the further I got over, a little more and more, it didn't quite line up. I tried to stretch it over, but it just wasn't going to happen. So either way, I think it's going to be all right. So the next thing is actually put the rear window on here and do the same thing. I got the center point marked on the rear plastic window. Gonna line it up here and staple this back edge, trying to keep it tight. Start in the middle, do one on this side, this side, this side, this side, until you get a staple clear across. Now once that's done, we need to assemble this in the car to adjust the rear window to that rear. Right, now I've got the rear window laid out. I marked the center line up there, the top of the plastic. It's actually tapered in as it goes up and gets narrower at the top. Same thing down here. Here's my center line at the bottom. I'm going to fold this over and just get it where it lines up with my center mark. And so then start stapling this thing across both sides here. All right, staple it all across the back. I didn't do the sides yet because what's going to happen is when I position the height of this, it's going to change how that attaches to the sides. There is a mark on it. Obviously, there's a little, looks like pencil mark. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's where it lines up at or not, but I want to do this. I know the back glass, plastic window, what do you want to call it, it should be good and tight across. You can see there's no ripples there. I'm going to bolt this to the well, then figure out where that's going to line up on the top of the car and put just a couple staples in it. And then once I get this position where I like it, I'm going to trace the inside of this well line on this, unbolt it, and then staple it in place where I want it, hoping that's the way to go. And once I get that satisfactory, I'll do the similar thing with the actual final convertible top. We got to lay it on. It overlays on top of this just a little bit. Then we'll do the same thing. Hopefully, get it pulled tight and stapled into place. This is what we call fake it till you make it. I'm going to change our plans up just a little bit. I went ahead, after I looked at that line, and I probably could look up online, I stapled it. You can see here the inner bracing. I stapled it right there. The inner tack strip is right at that same height. It came all the way around. It seemed to line up pretty good. So now that all stapled, I need to install this in the well. Put a few bolts mostly across where the window's at. Then we'll stretch that rear window, make sure it's going to look all right. So the next thing is put this in the car and put a few bolts in. All right, now what I've done, I put the bolts in, whether you can see in here or not, because you got to flip the well up to get inside here. But there's the bolts all along there. You see them? Put all of them in to pull the plastic up tight, put the back window up underneath that rear deck to get that as tight as I could inside here to get the wrinkles out. That being said, get you one of these. I tried doing it by hand the first couple times on and off, and it just wears you out. This thing just goes zip, zip, and you're done. So this is a lifesaver. Get you a 3/8 or even a drill-driven 1/2-inch socket and run those things in there. Now, I've got those in there. Now, the next thing to do, check our center line here, make sure how close it is or isn't. Pull it tight and put a couple staples in it and check out in our back window. Make sure it's laying out flat. All right, now as for our center line, I really don't think I could do much better. I try to push it side to side and it kind of lands right here. So either I'm just really lucky or it just happened to work out for me this time. So you want to keep it as close as you can. It doesn't have to be spot on because this rear window isn't really, it gets covered partially by the top. So now the next thing to do, pull this tight and put a couple staples in it and we'll see how wavy or how smooth we can get that back window. Before you staple the back window, prop the front up just a little bit. This is kind of an experiment, but I got about 3/4 inch gap. That's going to push the whole thing back. So when you staple, it'll actually stretch that rear plastic out a little bit, hopefully pull some of the wrinkles out. So step one, before stapling the top edge of the plastic window, shim up the front there just a little bit. Now again, we're going to start here at the center, pull that moderately tension, and then drop a stapler. I'm not going to put all the staples in this yet, just enough to kind of hold it into place. See how bad I'm doing here. I like to tell you magically all the wrinkles will come out of it in time, but I'd be lying to you. A little bit of a dimple here. I probably should have pulled it tighter from the center over when I stapled that around the bottom, but well, it is what it is at this point. I think that ought to work. I'll put one more staple on that side. Got a handful of staples across there now. Forgot to get some footage of that, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Pulled it tight, staple here in the middle. We got my center line, worked our way each side, kept pulling it. It looks a little wrinkly, but this thing sat in the box for 1.5 years. It's been out here in the sun, but I'm hoping I pull my little grenade pin, the pliers out of the front here, and then latch it. And then, of course, a couple days in the sun, probably finish this thing off and look pretty good. So let me get these things pulled out of here. Okay. Oh, it actually pulls pretty tight. So let's latch these things to see what it does. It actually latched pretty good. So let's see what that back window will look like. Okay, well, that looks respectable. Now, again, it looks worse than I think it's going to be once it sits for a few days, but that's super tight. I think that'll pull some of that stuff out. If not, I'll let you know, and we'll know that this was epic fail. But again, trying to figure this out, share with you what I've learned, what does and doesn't work, and so far, I think I'm doing okay. Now the next thing is going to be, we're going to get this thing positioned center line and get it in place, and we'll have to unbolt this, unfortunately, staple it, hopefully we get it right, and get it in place. The other thing we have to do is this rear weather strip section, the 3 screws that attach it must be removed. And then the front section here also has to be removed because the top will actually stretch around that with some adhesive and glue into place. So I'm going to add twice as many staples as I currently have, and then trim this back just the inside of that lip, because this will be visible inside the car. I don't want that hanging over. So again, I'm going to get some more staples on it and use a razor and probably just cut kind of like the brake line right through there. Careful not to nick my tape though. I still need these strut bars just a little bit longer, but I think we're just about done with those two. Our next part of the adventure, we're getting ready to put this top on. A few things you need to do first. In this bow, actually here, you have to install this piece here. This actually gets screwed to the second bow back from the front. It just tucks into this sleeve. And once you get it located in this position, then basically you just have some screws that actually attach into that. Pretty much not visible once it's all installed, so I didn't bother painting it. And the other thing is, here on the outside edges, you'll see a string. You know, obviously you pull these and something's probably supposed to come through, but you see it pops out the other end there. Well, there's cables, one for each side. Now what this has to be is fed through. The loop end there goes towards the rear, the spring goes towards the front. Left side, right side. Now what this does is when the top is all the way up, and you're basically driving down the road, it actually pulls this cable tight and secures this outside edge down to the top frame so it doesn't flop in the breeze. So if you ever see a car driving down the road and the outer edge is kind of flopping around, there's a good chance these cables are broken. They're available new. These are still in really good shape, so I'm going to reuse them. They're okay. If it was frayed or damaged, I would probably look into replacing it, but they're not horribly hard to replace. But a good top design here, they actually put a string. You just tie it to it, pull it right through. So I get both these pulled through, then work on wrestling at top. Now we're to the part, now we're to the part when I did my top that I don't really know the best step. I attached mine down at the bottom, the top part, and then I try attaching the top. And this top part, I'll show you here in a second, there's a little slit, about a 1/2 inch little cut, where they actually kind of fold the vinyl, and it actually has an exposed spot. It's supposed to hide underneath that strip that you put on the back when it's all said and done. Well, mine's off a little bit, it's exposed. That's where I screwed up. So I'm not sure if I should lay the main top on, put a tack, maybe just put 3 where it needs to be, and then what I'll do is unbolt the bottom here and put a couple in it, put it back together and inspect it, make sure I like it, and then staple it really secure. So I'm gonna try that this go around, and I guess we'll see how that works out. And if it works, I'll do it that way. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board, right? So nonetheless, I'm gonna get the top laying on here and put a couple staples. I've got the top kind of just laying on the car in position in the spot. And this is what I'm talking about. This is a little 1/2 inch slit. It's actually in the top. I mean, I don't understand it 100%, but there's this piece that goes over top this when it's all done. So you'll staple all across this rear bow, and this will be hiding underneath it if you get it positioned right. This is, like I said, I screwed that up. I wanted you to see that plain as day. So now that's the height where it's gonna have to be. I need that to sit on that rear bow. So that 22.5 inch mark, that's why it's probably important, so that lines up. Now in the center here, you'll see my center line. My tape is on the vinyl top part and on that rear bow. So I'm good left, right. I know that's centered. And even this is kind of funny. I literally threw this on here. I didn't even check it yet. But check out my cut. Just barely off. So I can push that over a little bit and it'll get it where it needs to be. So that kind of gets me roughed in. I think it's going to be okay as for its location. But the thing is, I need to put a staple. Get brave. Just drop one there in the center. Pull it tight this way. Put one here. Pull it tight that way. Maybe put one over there. And then unbolt the well here and see about stapling this all the way around. I hope maybe this line is also just as good and we can do the same thing I did before and just staple it just on that side of that line. But let's find out. I'm gonna put a staple in the middle, maybe 3 on each side. If I have to, I can take it back out. As long as I'm on the line, I hate to put any more holes than I need to. The less the better kind of thing. But let's put a couple in that and then unbolt this. Hopefully this helps out. I made 4 points of reference. Basically the tape, you see my line, you see the line. That way when these two get separated and shuffled around, I know where it needs to be to look really like nice and tight. It's actually pulled up real tight to the back plastic, pulled up tight all the way across, looking pretty good. Same as that side there. So I've got the 1, 2, 3, 4 points of reference there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and proceed to unbolt that and see about stapling this all the way around and see how well that goes. Hopefully good. And one more thing, when I staple, of course, I drop the staple here, right in the center, right on the money. You'll see my center mark right there. My tape is lined up with the top, so we're good. Then I kind of pull this, kind of leaned on it, and drop the staple right here where that nasty hole is at. In case if I do booger it up, it already has a hole there anyway, so I know I need to cover that up. So that's going to be okay. I wonder how far off my front center line is now. This is just kind of a point of reference, so let's see. Yeah, we're off quite a bit, but again, I'm pulling this tight now. Pulls a lot of the wrinkles out of it. It'll line right up, so I think that's going to be okay. Anyway, let's get them bolts out of there and get that staple and see what happens. All right, got it unbolted, flipped it up here. Put some sweatshirts down because, well, paint is cheap. Handle prevention isn't. I normally use tape, but sweatshirt seems to be okay because there may be some sharp edges on this. I don't want to find out. Now, this is interesting. Check this out here. I am glad that I marked this because this gives me an idea now. That's actually staying in place pretty good. When I get down here, though, it's not the natural resting spot isn't the same. So push that up just a little bit, and then that line actually lines up really close to the top of this whole thing. So I think what I'll do is follow that line and keep stapling it all the way around and get this thing pulled tight. Then we can flip this back down and put the bolts back in. So that seems to be working, but I think the secret here was definitely making the little tape marks here for our point of references. So again, I'm gonna get this thing whole stapled all the way around to here, and I'll get it bolted back in, and then what we'll do, make sure I'm happy with the staples there, and just keep pulling the top forward. We're going to stretch it over the front. These get glued here to the side, so we can kind of pull this, and it might be able to manipulate any wrinkles that may be here on the side when we're all said and done. Gosh, I already got this thing dirty. But then we'll keep working it forward, and the front gets glued and cut off. So I think that's the thing to do. I'll get this stapled and tuck back in. So 11 billion staples later, got this all stapled into place. I got it pulled, and when it pulls tight, my lines line up, so I'm gonna go ahead and bolt that back in. All right, got everything bolted in, looking pretty good. Now that's not to say these bolts will hold that strip in. You will probably have to take them out 2 or 3 times to finally get it dialed in right. What'll happen is either this isn't pulled tight enough or the window isn't pulled tight enough, and you gotta take it back apart and separate it. And if you have wrinkles here, you gotta shift it this way. If you got a bulge up here, like it's actually curling up, sometimes you gotta shift it this way and down the actual top. I've had this off 2 or 3 times. Didn't necessarily record all that, but that's something that I wanted to share with you. And once you get the back window looking pretty good, minus my 3 racing stripes, that's why that thing was folded in that box for a year and a half. It really kind of creased that window. I'm hoping those will work themselves out in time. If not, valuable lesson. If that back window's got those creases in it, probably ought to return and ask for different. This is in that box for a year and a half by the tag, so I might have messed up. But once everything looks good, you staple, it's underneath this. I didn't get that on video, but you staple this about every inch or so, nice, in a nice straight line, because this isn't a very wide strip. Then you same thing, you come back then and staple this, and then you fold this over, put your little caps on the end. So that's all good back here. So the next thing we're gonna work on doing is working our way forward. Now these wrinkles here will come out when I go to pull this down here, but we gotta pull the top. See all these wrinkles here in the top? I need to pull the top over the front. I've been trying to guesstimate where to put it at, so I've got some tape on here. So I'm going to put some spray adhesive on the bow here in the front. I had some here for tacking and checking, but I'm going to glue the whole thing now because I think I got the idea of where it needs to go. And as you can see, my silver permanent marker, that's where it's got to line up here on the front edge. So to make this easier, though, to get that stretched, we're going to open the top up where this section starts to fold. That makes it really easy to pull that. I'm going to test fit it. So we're going to spray a little bit of adhesive, pull it over to my line, then we're going to shut the top and see if we can get some of these wrinkles worked out. And of course, one more thing, last time probably actually checking this, but look at that. This is my center line of the car, and I really can't complain. That's actually pretty much spot on. That's just kind of flopping around. That's where it lands at. So we've got things adjusted pretty good. So I wouldn't say it has to be spot on, probably within an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch of that. But we're going to go ahead and get this masked off so I can get spray adhesive everywhere. We're going to coat this one last time and pull this to that line and see what it looks like. One more thing, additional note, while this has got this first section folded backwards, this is a great time to install these cables. I've already got them ran through the top from the very beginning of the video, but put that screw here, and the other one is back here, mounting it into the top there. So now's the time to go ahead and do that. Now, we got some masking done on this thing. We're going to put the top down, put a coat of adhesive on that. Now I've got that masked off. Just a quick little pass here. Hopefully this is the last time I'll have to take this on and off again, but we'll see, I suppose. This needs to come down here. Now, I don't like putting a whole lot of glue too far because it will clump up and can show through in your top, I've learned. All right, well, that's been drying for several minutes. We'll go ahead and do this. We'll get that where it pops that first section. Okay, well, the cool thing about a convertible is you can climb inside. Now I've got the center line marked. Now I've got the center tack down. I'm going to pull it this way pretty hard and forward at the same time. Good stuff. Now eventually I'll come back and kind of cut this and get it all lay underneath the edge. But for now, let's see what that looks like. Okay. I was able to get the top to latch down. Got a little bit of a wrinkle here, and you see a little bump. See that little tiny bit there? Now I'm being critical. Actually, my glue kind of balled up. So maybe the thing to do is not glue it multiple times and peel it up. So you'll end up with that. Maybe glue just the underneath the front edge of that when you pull it over. I don't know. This is a learning experience for all of us, right? I'm gonna show you what did and didn't work, and you can make an informed decision how you want to go from there. But I got a wrinkle here. I don't know how to get that one out of there. I've tried pulling this tighter, and it just doesn't seem to work. So I may have to have a little bit of a wrinkle here. So I guess this is the best that we can do. Now this, I'm pretty confident. Like I said, same thing. We're going to open the top, release a little bit of the tension. I've made some marks. We're going to pull this tight, and we're going to glue that inside that channel. That should get most of that out. But this back here looks real nice. That's smooth. That's pulled out good. I don't have any droop in this section, droop in that section, or that section. So I'm liking that. The leading edge looks fantastic. I don't see anything out of the ordinary here. So overall, I'm liking it, but we're gonna have to pull this side loose. I'm gonna try to pull this corner forward. Then we gotta wrap it around because back here's the top. You can see where the metal frame, when I push down on here, that's where it's poking through. So I gotta get this looped underneath it. Then you actually staple the whole front edge just the same. But I'm gonna take this loose, pull this out, and see if I can't get some of this wrinkle out, and pull this top this direction here, see what happens. Now I've popped the top up so I get my hands in here, but see if we can't peel this back. Get rid of some of those globs of goo too, hopefully. They're not bad. It's only been a few minutes. This stuff's setting up pretty quick. And then the rest of it, I think I can get out by pulling this around the side. That goes underneath that weather stripping. That'll help hold it in place. So, still got a little wrinkle there. I don't know if I'm able to get that one out. So, I don't want to make things worse. So, I may just call that good. I'll work on cutting and trimming this back and stapling it underneath that front edge. All right, let's work on getting this wrapped around. This is the piece that will tuck underneath the weather stripping, which normally screws into this channel. Well, it's entirely way too long. It's hanging out past the front. What I mean is the bow here, you see it comes around. That's sticking out about 1 inch, 2 inches too far. So I need to trim this back to right here to the edge of the point where that would radius would come around, and trim that off, and to go ahead and take this corner off. Make sure you take it back at about a 45-degree angle. I'm gonna cut that out. Now I got that trimmed back. As you can see then, now my corner all meets right here. So now I can put some adhesive. We can glue this flap into the frame here, this to this here, and pull it moderately tight. I only have to trim off the excess, but that'll get that edge where it pulls this corner down. Then when we do this here, once that's glued, I can pull this corner down, and we'll fold that up like this, nice and tidy. Of course, we'll get that wrinkle out of it, but you get the idea then. That way, when the top is up, then my corner is literally right here in that welting or that stitching. So it actually should look pretty good. We have another piece that goes here on the front. I kind of curve up the leading edge, but this is how I'll get a front edge like this when it's all done. So I'm going to get this glued, put into place, and I'll get this pulled back, and I'll probably put a staple in it. I'll show you what we mean. All right, we'll give that a few minutes to dry. Here's what I've done. Stapled the leading edge here into our tack strip. Got that fold over looking pretty good. I like it. It's right on the corner of the metal. I put the 2 screws in here to help locate that. And of course, I got the adhesive behind it and setting it up. But I wanted to punch my holes here so when I go put the weather stripping on, I'm not flying blind. The thing I don't like is it just doesn't want to stay glued here very well. So I don't know, maybe a different kind of glue and put some clamps on it. I may come back with something like that and let it sit for a while. See if I can get that to stick in there a little better. But maybe should have started at the center and worked my way across, but it feels to be lining up pretty good and pulling tight. So it probably won't be an issue, but again, I'm just sharing with the experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess you could say, this whole ordeal, and you can basically doctor it how you want. But this is cut at 45, where it worked out nice. Like I said, this is right on the corner. Looks pretty good, so I'm going to work with that. I'm going to show the top and see what that looks like. All right, here we go. This is all laid out pretty good. I like how that's pulled up nice and tight. And there's an extra piece that goes on the front of the here. Gets stapled on the front. So I think this is just tucked underneath there. It's not even a staple. So I'm going to go ahead and staple, do the driver's side up the same way as I did this side here and get that all stapled down and then trim back just the inside of that tack strip. There's our first pass. Now remember, we got to come back with another piece of, I guess you call it trim, or it goes on the front of the convertible topper. So this is all going to get stapled one more time, but I had to make a few relief cuts, cut scissors, not all the way to the edge because I could see it over time splitting over the top. So I stopped about a 1/4 inch in from the edge and cut it, and that kind of overlaps a little bit. You can see that way it keeps it pulled up tight. So that's all stapled on. I'm working on putting that little piece of trim on. This is the piece that goes on next. What you'll actually do, this is going to be the leading edge of the front. You'll see this right across the top of the glass, basically. Now, what we're going to do is you open it up, you staple one side, and then this here flap goes over top and hides all your staples and make it look clean. And then what you got to do is you set this up where the weather stripping lays over top of this. So, more daggum adhesive time, right? This is probably the time I wish that I probably used some kind of brush on adhesive instead of that spray stuff, because it just seems to be making a mess. I'm not a fan of the spray adhesive on this one, or at least this part of the project. But anyway, let's work on getting this trimmed back and stapled, then we'll get it glued and put into place. All right, once you get it all stapled across the front, it looks pretty good. It'll pull up there. When the top comes up, that'll rest right here on the header panel. Then once you get it all stapled on the bottom, then you snap the weather stripping all back in that. That'll take care of the front edge. And then basically then, I've already put these back in too. You put that weather stripping back in here and there, and it should be pretty much done, except for hit the up button here. And we can latch that thing down. Now, I'm going to give you a walk around here, kind of tell you the yays and nays and ups and downs. Right, so there we have it, a working convertible top installed. Now, is it the best installation ever? Probably not. I'm going to give myself a B- on this one. I think I did better the very first one. Remember, this is only top number 2 for me. I learned a lot the first go around, but I must have forgot a little bit and learned some more this go around. Now, what I do like, the pros, this came out super nice. It lays out nice, lines up with the trim all the way across nice, even gap. Bring the top down, it latches good. This lines up really nice. I like that. Things I don't like, I still have some wrinkles in it. I just, no matter how I pulled or stretched, I really felt like I couldn't get those to come out. And I kept trying to pull here on the front, and it got to the point where the top did not want to close. So there's probably some secrets to the trade that I don't know, that maybe with more experience, or we can figure this all out. But this here, I still could not get these wrinkles worked out. It may be that I need to pull this all unbolted, pull the staples out, pull this corner down a little further in relationship to the tack strip that bolts in. I don't know. I've pulled it a few times, and I have probably about 12 hours wrapped up into this, and it's still not 100%. The back window, I still have those creases in it, and I don't know if they're going to come out. I really, really hope they do. But the window laid out nice to the top. We're pulled up tight all the way around, round. So that part came out good. I like that. And I have no wrinkles here in these parts of the top. I like that. This side here, same thing. A little bit of a wrinkle here. I don't know. I guess I'll keep messing with it, or just drive it, have some fun. We'll see if any of this comes out with driving it in the sun. He even says that in the paperwork. Let it sit out in the sun. Some of the wrinkles will work themselves out, because these are pretty deep wrinkles here. This isn't because I didn't pull it tight. It's just from being in the package for so long. So I'm hoping some of this stuff will clean itself up with some time. If not, Again, we'll probably be driving this car with top down most time. So there you have it. Top is installed and operational. Did I get myself a perfect score? Nope, not even close. I'm really feeling pretty good about how the top worked out. I'm like, I know I did it myself, got my hands dirty kind of thing, but do I really feel this represents the best that can be done and best out there? No, I really don't. I mean, but to pay someone to do it, I don't have any idea how much it cost. The unfortunate thing now is these tops, $700 kit. So it's a bit of a gamble. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you see what it takes, you know what I've did, and how much I had to beat my head against the wall of stuff you saw on the camera, the things you didn't hear when the camera was off. Would definitely change the rating of the channel. So I'm going to say in this case, maybe this is one of those things that you might pay someone or have a buddy who has done this work and pay him under the table to come over and show you the ins, outs, the ups, and the downs. But so now all it's left to do, the Project Mockingbird here, as you can see, it looks like a complete car because it pretty much is. It needs a bath, a final detail, put some miles on it, and see how well it's going to hold up and stay together if any kind of issues that might occur. Because this is basically a brand new car. It shows 3 whole miles on the odometer right now at this point. So I need to drive this thing and to take you guys, gals, along for the ride and see if anything pops up. Because, you know, just because it's new or rebuilt doesn't mean it's not going to have troubles or issues that we don't need to figure out before we give this back. So anyway, appreciate you following me on the journey of the Mockingbird. I have the next car, the Lamborghini. I think that's the name we're going to go with. It's going to be a 68 Firebird convertible, so I get to have it go again on another convertible top, but I may do some more homework and research. But anyway, appreciate you following me on this go around. We'll definitely grab the camera, and we'll catch you guys and gals next time.
Stored a Pontiac or two, and he's been known to drink a big orange dew. Just a working man trying to save the world, one Firebird at a time.